Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another installment of Reality vs. Ragnarok, the character discussion series for Shumatsu no Valkyrie, in which I pick one of the characters, not necessarily in any type of order, and do sort of a little bit of a character discussion, but with a twist. That twist, of course, is at the beginning, going through the reality section, the character that we know from history or from mythology, and we discuss the actual real-world version of that first, and then we go into the discussion in the interpretation that is in the Shumatsu no Valkyrie manga, of course. Now, this is your host, Griever, as always, and who are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about a fan-favorite character, Jack the Ripper. So without further ado, let's get underway with... London, 1888. Not the best time to be a prostitute, especially in the Whitechapel district, where poverty and overpopulation was running completely rampant at the time, for various reasons, including a huge influx of Irish and other immigrants. Besides the violence and thievery, there was also a serial killer who specifically mutilated and killed ladies of the night. Whether you believe it was 5 women in 1888, or a much larger number spanning years, his name has been cemented in history, and he is known as the Whitechapel Murderer. Wait a minute. That doesn't seem right, does it, guys? Hold on a sec. Check my notes here. Oh, sorry. Here it is. Leather Apron. No, that's not ringing a bell either. I swear it's somewhere here in my notes. It's Jack the Ripper, isn't it? It's supposed to be about Jack the Ripper. What, of course it is. But here's our first little insight into the famous serial killer. Jack the Ripper is a famous name, but in all official police documentation and Scotland Yard documentation that survived the Blitz and 1888 and such, he was never listed as Jack the Ripper. In fact, he was always listed as the Whitechapel Murderer. This is our first little insight. He was not even known as Jack the Ripper until a letter known as the Dear Boss letter, which was received after the officially recognized second murder of Annie Chapman a few weeks later and took place between the third and fourth murders. Originally thought to be a hoax, this letter was signed as Jack the Ripper, while news media outlets at the time were referring to him as the aforementioned Leather Apron. It wasn't until the mutilated ear of Catherine Eddowes, one of the murder victims, had surfaced that they took some credence, because in the aforementioned letter, the Dear Boss letter, that is when he said this is what he would do. It effectively, at the time, gave more credence to this hoax letter signed Jack the Ripper, and basically knocked away the Whitechapel Murderer alias along with Leather Apron right out of the game, and the news media outlets ever since continued to refer to him as Jack the Ripper. Hence, the Dear Boss letter at times is taken with a little more credence and other times is still viewed as a hoax to this day. That being said, I could not find any official documentation that ever showed that he was referred to anything else, neither Jack the Ripper nor Leather Apron, and was always referred to as the Whitechapel Murderer by Scotland Yard and other police authorities. The number of suspects, and hell, even the number of victims, are not universally accepted, even to this day, over 100 years later. See, much of it was fabricated by the news media outlets at the time, as Jack the Ripper was a media storm of a story. Especially during this time period where the number of literate people was vastly increasing in 1888, and then post that time period, he might not have been the first serial killer, but he was the one to gain such worldwide renown and attention. This added, unfortunately, to the amount of journalistic integrity not exactly being on the up and up at the time, and so much is left into the myth, the mystery, and the outright lies that the media was producing at the time. Some report over a dozen killings, spanning multiple years, while the infamous canonical 5 are not even accepted as being all committed by the same killer by everyone. The legend of Jack the Ripper became a phenomenon, and as I said, though he was not the first serial killer, or even the first unsolved case in regards to one, Jack the Ripper became, for better or worse, legendary. Now, a quick wiki search can tell you guys and show you the dozens of suspects that were a part of this case, anywhere from the outlandish and just downright impossible, all the way to suspects that had a level of basis and groundwork, though nothing came of these ones either. Now, unfortunately, in, of course, 1941, there was the Blitz, and many of the police case files from the previous time periods, and especially the ones involving the Whitechapel murderer, or Jack the Ripper, were destroyed or lost at the time. So we don't actually even have all the original case files to go through even today with modern technology. Now, personally, I believe, like many, that the killer had some form of medical or even surgical training or knowledge, as some of the mutilations seem to be so precise and done with the intent to remove certain organs undamaged. Others believe him to be a butcher or someone with experience at a slaughterhouse for the similar reasons of understanding anatomy to some degree. Even Queen Victoria believed it was likely a butcher. Whomever he is, it is highly unlikely we will never know, and he got away with at least 2 brutal murders according to some, and upwards to over a dozen by others. A surviving photograph of one victim, Mary Jane Kelly, shows us how incredibly brutal, depraved, and savage Jack the Ripper truly was, regardless of who he or even she was. It honestly disturbed me to look at this photo for any length of time while doing research for this video. When you realize this is real. This isn't special effects, movie magic, or makeup and gore settings. This photo shows what used to be a human woman that has been so distorted that you don't even realize exactly what you're looking at first. As you look through the grainy grayscale of the photo, more and more you realize that's supposed to be her face. That's supposed to be her chest. That's supposed to be where her legs were supposed to be. The more you look at it and the more you realize exactly the brutality behind this photo, it's honestly disturbing. And I mean, of course, I was doing this research at night, so I was getting myself a little eerie in a big dark house all by my lonesome. Now, I'm not actually going to show this photo in the part of the video because I honestly believe YouTube would have a very serious problem with it, and I can fully understand why. Monetized or not, this is just too extreme. If you want to go check it out, it is on the Wikipedia page for Jack the Ripper. You just have to scroll down and look at the Mary Jane Kelly photograph. It is a surviving photograph of, apparently, the real crime scene. Incredibly savage and demented, Jack the Ripper was never caught, and we may never know his true story or origins. He was heightened to a level of infamy by the journalistic rise of the times, and as a result, the truth will likely stay buried there. Now, I'm sorry that this reality section became more of a general briefing rather than talking about any prime suspect or such, but unfortunately, as a result, it had to be this short because the reality section is meant to be based in mostly fact. And the fact of the matter is, we don't know enough about him. We have no prime suspects that is universally accepted. We don't even know if he was truly a man or a woman for that matter, or how many he potentially killed. We can't even decide on that much, as I discussed earlier. So with that being said, I can only close out this reality section by saying the one fact we do know is that for certain that someone mercilessly and cruelly mutilated and murdered multiple women in 1888. Thankfully, moving on to the Ragnarok version. Isn't that right, ladies and gentlemen? That was getting a little dark, a little gloomy, and full of dead prostitutes. What are you going to do? But now we can move on to what I would say are on most people's top 5 character lists. Jack the Ripper has won over so many people for a number of reasons. His aristocratic manners and appearance, the dark and creepy personality, the very original backstory, his bullshit hacks in round 4 that had no precedent. There's so many reasons to like him, right? I mean, now I am a Hercules stan. You guys know this already. But this does not mean, I want to make this very clear as we continue this section, I stan Heracles, my favorite character in the series. But this does not mean, and this has sometimes come about, people think that means I dislike Jack. I do not dislike Jack. Far from it, in fact. I found him to be refreshingly different, and a big part of the reason that round 4 is arguably definitely the most unique of all the fights thus far, and might even be the best fight in the series, bar none, regardless. Sorry, Adam versus Zeus, but I think I really do have to put round 4 as the best fight thus far. introducing us to not only the heroes of humanity, but evil itself personified. If the reality section of this video is anything to take into account, you can understand how everyone felt in that arena during the start of round 4 when they realized Jack the Ripper was going to represent them in the 4th round. Between his appearance and his polarizing views, especially to his opponent, for us as readers as well, truly set him up as a character that we sat on the edge of our seat to watch, to read, not always sure what he was going to be up to or how he was even going to react to different dialogue, to different words, to different situations. He always kept us on our toes. His appearance of being well-groomed in attire, but matched with the disturbing facial expression, really let us know that this man was unhinged, even before his singing of My Fair Lady. Forcing a connection with his Valen through fear and intimidation, he continued to apply deceptive and cunning actions throughout the entirety of round 4 to keep us guessing. Now, I keep using the word refreshing here, guys, but I still believe it applies. Jack's character is vastly unique and different from almost every other combatant for sure, and every other character I would argue that we have seen thus far, even up to the latest chapters beginning of round 6. We certainly haven't seen a combatant of his style in all of the rounds thus far. We might see something about that later, but for now, I'm going to take homage in the fact that we just happened to see him right before round 6 in the latest chapters, and that is just, I can't wait to see even more of him going forward. Now, Jack's backstory is one of my top 3 favorites in the series so far, easily. It's heartbreaking knowing what is going to occur, but you continue to want to know more. Kind of like watching a car accident in slow motion. You know that this child, who has so little amount of reason to be happy, but tries to be anyways, will somehow end up as that infamous Whitechapel murderer. Now, I actually remember one stream. I believe it was during round 4. And we had a discussion, I would say, or an argument, a very open, very strongly passionate worded discussion about Jack's mother and about what a horrible, evil person she is to give birth to this child for the sake of a bargaining chip, for her own selfish desires. She's using her child as currency. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I might have had a few during that stream, as I tend to do, but the tangents and opinions I held back then, I think I hold true to almost every word I said there. I haven't gone back and rewatched it, but I don't think I said anything that is untrue. I still to this day, this does not mean that Jack the Ripper's backstory was poorly written or that the mother is not a well-written character for us to mean to hate her. That is a sign of a good written character. We are meant to despise her, and this was done extraordinarily well and successfully. I personally believe that Jack's mother is one of the worst type of human beings, and the fact that we could get, this is what makes Jack's backstory one of the best in the series, because it made us passionate. And we had an open discussion where some people told me, I forget who, and I apologize if I can't remember who said what, because I didn't go back and check this stream, but there was people who argued that no, she's just a selfish person, but she's not horribly evil, and that's just not what it is. And in my mind, I'm thinking, whoa, that I can't think of how you could almost get more evil than that, like drowning your own babies and stuff, like using your own children. It certainly makes you the most horrible type of parent ever to exist. You should never have been one. But it also makes you a certain level of evil that I just don't think can be argued against. A young boy on the streets with the ability to see emotions through one of his eyes, he truly saw deeper than anyone, but remained happily living on scraps with his mother at a brothel. All because of this eye of his, which may have been a blessing, became a true curse when it had shown him but one solace in life, and it was his mother's love. A mother's love that was so distorted and shattered once he realized it was never once directed at him. He was a shiny penny and nothing more. Young Jack at 12 years old could not handle his mother having the same disgusting colors as everyone else he had seen his entire life, and thus killed her, seeing a new color as he did so. The one of fear, the one and only joy he could now feel anymore due to this traumatic event. It had finally broken the boy's young mind and leading him to become the serial killer of fame. This showed me fundamentally how simplistic yet deep and three-dimensional this backstory had just made Jack. Jack became a well-developed character right then and there, and they could have stopped there. But now we jump back to the present storyline, where Heracles asks very simple questions to begin the development of Jack in the present. He asks him, was it the bottomless pits of poverty or the deep cuts of betrayal that made you lose? You have lost. You have lost to despair. You lost to self-gratification. This is where the actual development of Jack in the present storyline begins, with these simple questions by Heracles, an expression we hadn't seen on Jack's face yet. He was now frowning. He was now serious. He was insulted even by Heracles' proclamation that he had lost. What had he lost? Well, Heracles shows him during this fight a color that Jack could not change. A color that he saw with his eye, something he remembered from years ago. That same color that had at one time made an innocent, wide-eyed young boy the happiest boy in the world. He recognized it, but was so far gone, he did not even remember what it was at first. And throughout the fight, he realizes he had never seen true love at all. At that point, wanting to diet the color of fear even further. Now, this does not stop there, however. Jack would remain a good character, had that been as far as we got. It would have been fully fleshed out, three-dimensional, developed, recognizing what the color of true love was, but being too far gone and not wanting to accept the change and still wanting to die at the color of fear, as he makes a Joker-like smile on his face with the blood on his hands. This would have been a fine way. The character's development and growth could have stopped there, and that would have cemented Jack as a good character. But Jack is not a good character. Jack is a great character. And we continue his development even further past this. They take it a step further. At the end of the fight, Heracles refusing to change his color, forcing Jack to understand that he would never be dyed the color of fear, and Jack accepting this battle of conviction and change as his loss. Heracles broke through to Jack in this moment and finally might be able to move forward and not be so lost in self-gratification, in despair any longer. He was so broken that after the end of the fight, he did not realize that he was sad to have killed Heracles, the one person who tried. He had to be told by his Volund Halak that that's what he was feeling, and she felt pity towards Jack because he couldn't even recognize that he felt bad for losing Heracles. He felt bad for killing Heracles, and he was so broken he couldn't even understand that. But now maybe he finally has the opportunity to do so. We see the change in demeanor as he walks off, wanting to see Heracles again, because he knew he had truly done it. Heracles had continued to show him love and tried to save him from his suffering. Jack was now on a path to recovery, and this cements him as arguably one of the best written characters in the whole series. Now, if you guys don't think that I did this entire video in absolutely one take without question, there is not a single discernible feature that would lead you to believe that I didn't do this all in one take. I certainly did not have a corrupted video and audio file at the end part of this video and did not realize it until I was almost finished editing. Absolutely not. So on with the video, because this is definitely one take. The best part about Jack's character development is that it doesn't even seem to be at its end. As of the last chapter, which I believe is number 43, hopefully I got that right. If I didn't, it'll be there'll be a little thingy right here. But as of chapter 43, we continue his character development. His character development isn't over, which is unlike, I'm not saying that we haven't seen other combatants after they've been in the arena, right? Like, we've still been following Zeus. We saw Sasuke in between the rounds and such. But their story, their growth, their character development is essentially done and over. They get their backstory, they develop in the fight, and then they become one full circle, three-dimensional character. Jack only started his new journey of development based on, as I said before, the best fight in the series thus far. And we see that when he was in between, right before round 6 here in the chapter. Goal is eavesdropping on the 7 lucky gods and Bishomonten and stuff like that. And Jack comes to defend her from the medical bay, and he's all bandaged up and stuff like that. And we see her, her there, and he's defending her and such like that. So they walk away, and we get some more plot things going on. But the key thing, one thing that was not missing from this scene, but people sort of glossed over, of course I did not, being a Heracles stan, was Jack's reaction to Goal. Remember that Goal was the one who screamed at Brunhild and told her, are you happy that murderer, are you happy with our victory, sister? Yeah, humanity tied it up and our brother is dead at that murderer's hands. She despised Jack the Ripper at the end of the fight. And Brunhild, as we know, was stoic, and we saw her break down later on after the fight. Probably my favorite moment in the whole series. But after this, Goal has already gone through. After seeing the struggle that Brunhild has gone through, and remember the slamming of the fist and stuff, she realizes that Brunhild is also hurting. That this is all for the sake of humanity. She brings up the inspirational quote from Adam. Goal remembers her brother and what he was actually fighting for and stuff, and she pushes that all down and smiles, mirroring Heracles' smile to Jack, and says, you know, if you're hurt, you should really get those looked at and stuff. You're wounded, you know, it's fine, whatever. And we see that reflection. Jack sees it, reflects it, is shocked to recognize it. Because I believe that not only was Jack's character here in the process of healing, but he potentially killed the only person that he would ever be able to not relate to, but talk to. To actually be not, once again, see, friend or relate to or companion. These are the wrong words. There's not a single word, not even a therapist. Like, there's not a single word to describe what Heracles now means to Jack. It's beyond that. It's a three-dimensional thing that cannot be summed up with one word of the English language like that, with one simple noun or adjective. It's not going to work that way. For Jack, Heracles was so much more than that, so much more that I've continuously described here. And you could argue that any healing Jack may have been able to do, sort of by the lesson after killing Heracles and all that stuff, and finally learning and being able to grow, is that he can't, though. He might have started the process, but he'll forever stay at step 1, 2, whatever you want to say he was at, because now he's once again alone. He's still alone, and outside of Heracles, nobody else. Look, humanity threw, after winning for humanity, they threw garbage at him. Jack was still hated at the end of the day. Goal hated him. Nobody liked him at this point. The gods hate him. Humanity hates him. Heracles was the only one. And now you could argue that he might have stayed in this point, at this starting a healing process, starting to move forward, but unable to advance because once again he's now alone. He killed the one thing, you know. So, but in Goal, in Heracles' youngest sister, he saw the reflection of Heracles' love for humanity. We don't see him looking at her with his eye, but with the mirrored image and stuff, you could argue that he did. It reflects, and he says, "My dear young lady, would you like a cup of tea? Like, would you like to enjoy a cup of tea with me, etc., black tea?" And she says, "No, I've got to be hurrying. I've got to get going and stuff. But thank you very much," and walks away. And he laments to himself, you know, "Oh, how sad. Like, I wish you would," sort of idea. In the same way that he looked down, melancholy, sort of, almost melancholy in a way, looking when he's like, "I would like to see Heracles again one more time." Now he wished to sit down and just have a cup of tea with his sister because he saw Heracles within her. It's his development is still not done. And we've gone through now we've gone through the Shiva Raiden fight. We've gone through round 5. We're starting round 6, and Jack is still developing in the background. He's the best written character in the series because his story isn't one done, round 4 is over, that's the end of Jack. We're going to keep seeing him. Sasuke's story is over. Zeus's story, you could argue, might still be developing. Shiva's story, over. Raiden's story, over. Everybody else's story is over. But Jack's is continuing. And it really does. I want to see him in future chapters. I want to continuously see this growth within him because I think that we're intending to move on to fights outside of rounds. You know, we saw sort of the beginnings of that, and I think we're going to see more. We're going to see crowd interference, we're going to see God interference, we're going to see humanity interference. There's going to be fights outside of the rounds that are not interrupted by Zeus and Odin, and I think that this is where Jack, Sasuke, the survivors of humanity, are going to play a key role, and I'd really like to see Jack develop even further beyond this. If he doesn't, it's fine, because he's already 4-dimensional. He's well beyond it. Either way, overall, Jack the Ripper is still one of the best characters. I have to keep saying that Jack the Ripper is still one of the best characters in the series. And he's understandably a top 5, top 3, some people's favorite character. A lot of Jack stans are out there. And yeah, how would you fail to see why? It's written right there. If you read this, if you watched this fight, if you saw everything that happened, how could you argue against how well written Jack was? Like, he's evil personified, and we like him. Like, it's just, like, how that happened is completely beyond me. It would be easy to dislike him. It'd be easy to hate him. It'd be easy to go, yeah, I like his powers and abilities, but I hate him as a person. I hate him as a character. But you can still, how they made us sympathize and empathize with this serial killer is beyond me. But it worked, and it worked so well. I can't stop praising him enough, but this video will go on and on, 35, 40 minutes if I keep going, but I could. But I'm going to stop it here. Like, comment, and subscribe, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope this definitely cleared the air, as I said previously in the video, that I never disliked Jack. I thought that there were some hacks and some bullshittery in round 4 more so than any of the other rounds, but that's the end. It was all about the power scaling, what I believed could or could not have happened in the fight. It was never a dislike on his character. It was never a dislike on either side of that. I really like Jack the Ripper. I think he's a really good character. So that being said, this has been Record vs. Ragnarok, the Jack the Ripper edition. Hope you guys enjoyed. And if you guys have, I think I know who I'm going to do for the next one, and it'll probably take a while to get that video out as well, as this one took a long time. But I think I have an idea. But if you guys really want me to talk about a certain character, I'd like to do all the completed combatants first, so keep that in mind. But if you guys are really itching to hear me talk about Thor or Sasuke or something like that, let me know in the comment section down below, of course. And what did you guys think of Jack? Do I hype him up too much? Do I not pay him even enough credit? What was there facts wrong in my reality section? Let me know down in the comment section down below. This has been a very long outro, so I'm just going to end it here. Don't forget, guys, we're trying to get to 500 subscribers. Not 300, not 400, but 500 subscribers in the month of March. That way I will have a 500 milestone video out the first week of April, and you guys, yes, you will be able to decide what the 500 milestone video is all about. Whether it's a video, whether it's a stream, whether it's me running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I'm not gonna. No, I might do it. Yeah, I could put some feathers on, you know. Either way, all right. So, I mean, it is cold outside. Who knows? But either way, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll see you back here next time. So keep commenting, keep liking, keep subscribing, keep drinking responsibly as always. We'll see you back here next time. Peace out.